Hello world. I haven't logged into chat yet.
So hopefully the frame rate of the commercial is good enough to like do I think it will be. I think it'll be fine. Mine looks like it gets like 25 FPS. I'm watching my head move back and forth to see how many frames per second it's moving at. Very scientific measurement.
The spacing of that first voicemail is freaking me out.
Yep.
I think it's just.
It pretty much looks like a murder letter, like a ransom note.
Yep. That is how it automatically does it if you copy the text transcript into a cell.
I was 18 T towers on their service.
I love, hey guys, it's Ryan. I have a question about cell phone connectivity and pianos.
And pianos.
I mean, you know, whatever. Maybe he makes the connection later.
Sounds like Sling Blade. Yeah, I do that impression. Awful. It wasn't even an impression. I just made a long M noise and said Sling Blade.
Sling Blade.
Okay, so social. I love that every time I go on the AP Facebook page, there are actually like messages in the inbox of people like pitching us in our Facebook page inbox.
That's awesome.
Like who would ever read this?
Yeah, you know, I get pitches in my personal Facebook
Ugh.
all the time, and it's like, it's the strangest thing because I don't link to my Facebook anywhere. So like somebody like copied my name and like specifically went to Facebook.com and searched for it.
And then looked for the picture that looks like the one from your articles.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are going to be 2 results, so, you know, pretty easy to find.
You and your evil twin?
Yeah, just some other guy that has my name, and I say my name because it's mine. You look at Google, that's my name, not his. But yeah, so like people like just send me stuff on Facebook for no apparent reason, even though I list other contact methods elsewhere.
I get them on LinkedIn sometimes, which to me is just like the ultimate of desperation.
Yeah, I get those too sometimes. Well, I've gotten like job pitches and stuff on LinkedIn from like kind of like for real companies. So like, I mean, I guess I understand that because old people they use LinkedIn, they think it's the coolest thing ever.
Oh, it's like business Facebook.
Except that there is a business Facebook now.
Is there?
Yeah, Facebook for work. It's a thing.
So you can see even more people you don't want to talk to on the internet.
Right.
Except for our workplace. We have a wonderful workplace. Everybody likes each other.
Yeah, because we don't have to actually see each other.
It's true. It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Key to workplace success.
I don't like people that I have to see every day is the problem. I'm not a people person.
Okay. We did the Throwback Thursday article today, and it was like the most random article ever. You know, it's kind of funny, I guess, but it was Samsung moment, Android 2.1 pictures surface.
Yeah. No comment.
We should actually know it. I should throw that into the show as a weekly thing, actually, because then it's like double dipping on free content.
Yeah. That actually would be kind of funny. What else happened? Do we still have that section in the sidebar? Ah, yes. 3 years ago today, Toshiba Thrive finally receiving ice cream sandwich.
Toshiba Thrive. Oh.
That thing had a full. Was that the one with the full-size USB port?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Full-size HDMI port too. and full-size SD card slot. It was awful.
Like Toshiba just like snapped the keyboard off of a computer. Here you go.
It's only missing an optical drive.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm sure there was somebody out there who's like, hey, I'm really upset that my Toshiba Thrive's USB port does not support a USB optical drive. Why is there no CD read support in Android? This is a travesty. Okay, I'm going to social us on that wonderful note. We should do the throwback article, though, and toss it in there. I don't even remember that phone. That was like before my time, I think, or just.
I remember that phone. That was like the third Android phone that you could buy or something like that.
Ugh.
It had an AMOLED screen, a shitty one. They had an 800 megahertz CPU, which at the time was impressive.
320p display.
Yeah.
That's one half QHD. Lowercase QHD, the evil QHD.
So that's an eighth HD.
That's when the lowercase QHD displays with their pentile subpixel arrangement, so that all the greens looked awful and everything had weird edges.
Yeah, that was a sad time. The Moto E has a QHD quarter HD screen. It looks okay.
I'm gonna guess it's not pentile.
No, it's regular LCD. Yeah, no, if it were pentile, it would be atrocious, I'm sure.
Okay. I guess we can go ahead.
Yes, we should do the show.
It is 5:29. We get started on time.
7:29 more likely.
I only use real time.
38.
Ah. Matt, are you going to listen to the intro music?
No, I'm not. I'm just going to fake it.
Okay.
I'm just going to try to bring that emotion that I can bring without the music, and we'll see if I can pull it off.
Okay.
It's like just act like you're answering like a really anticipated phone call when you say hello way too loud.
Yes. All right. Welcome to the Android Police Podcast, your weekly audio source for all things Android. It is Thursday, August 6, 2015. I'm your host, Matthew Smith.
I'm David Ruddick.
I'm Liam Spradlin.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
And that's it. That's everybody. We're all counted for.
I did not hear Ryan at all. I was just sitting here waiting for Ryan.
Did everybody else hear me?
I heard you.
Okay. I guess we can try that again.
I think it's fine.
If David heard you, it's fine because that's all that matters. We only care what David hears. It's really all that matters.
Okay. Sounds good.
We are all of one mind on that issue.
Yeah, it's nice not having that burden with apparently crappy Ohio internet connections.
Oh. So,
let's get things started. We've got some Google news to talk about this week, mostly about updates that are coming and updates that aren't coming. In this particular case, aren't coming would mean just, coming a little bit late. So Developer Preview 3, we were told the Developer Previews are going to come one each month until the final release. And it's just not looking like it's going to turn out that way too much.
It isn't. Yeah, I mean, although is that at all surprising with Google? We're going to promise a timeline. By the way, it's probably, a couple weeks late, maybe, most likely. That's just kind of how Google operates. I'm surprised they even offered that in the first place.
Yeah,
it seems like overpromising.
Yeah, they should have just said we'll have probably 3 previews, and they'll come out when they're ready.
I mean, I guess it makes sense in terms of, I mean, how many people actually really care? It's extremely low number of human beings.
Yeah, at this point, probably not a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people flash the first dev preview, I'm sure, just to see what it was like. And then I'm sure most of them flashed back to something they can actually use on a daily basis.
I've been, wanting to flash off of it, but every time I get really close to being like, all right, I'm done, and then it's like, oh, well, I guess the new one's going to come out. I mean, that's literally only happened twice now. But that's how it feels.
Luckily, you have a sea of phones behind you.
I do. I've been living with the Nexus 6 like every day. Even the battery drain is terrible. Like the phone never goes to sleep ever. So that's fun. So my battery lasts like 3/4 of a day, no matter how much I actually use the phone.
Well, I mean, that's very freeing, though. I mean, it's going to last a certain amount of time, no matter what you do.
True, the most predictable battery life I've ever had.
That's pretty much what I get with my Galaxy S6, and I'm not even running an M preview.
That's true too. That's how that phone is as well.
So I've just compensated for it by putting wireless chargers everywhere. So like no matter where I set my phone down, it's just going to charge.
That's good. That would
Buy
just
IKEA stock or IKEA furniture. Really, they have that now.
They do.
Yeah, but they're just like tiny little wireless charging pads, like in the surface of stuff.
Yeah, I want like the wireless charging bucket. You just throw phones in and they all charge.
I want like a desk where the entire surface is like a Qi coil that I just set stuff down.
Is there like a limit to the size of what those coils can be? I mean, do they have to be a specific size? Because I'm just thinking, why not just make a bigger coil that takes over the whole desk?
I think there would be the issue. Wouldn't you then have to? I don't know electricity, so I'm gonna guess there's something where if you scale up the coil size, something else must increase either proportionally or exponentially.
It probably requires a lot more power.
Or either amperage or voltage. I'm not sure which, because if it was amperage, then it'd probably be just prohibitive practically.
So you could try doing it, but there's a good chance it'll turn your end table into a carcinogen. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, most likely. That sounds right. Also, you would need a ton of copper, and I think that would get really expensive really fast. Somebody would actually steal your desk for copper.
I have copper pipes. I could just rip out my own pipes. I mean, wireless charging is more important than having water delivered to various places in your house, right?
I've heard that. I believe I read that on XDA.
Tutorial: how to turn your copper pipes into a wireless charger.
Yes. That sounds like a plan. So
they said they delayed it basically because the M preview because they want to provide a near final experience to developers in this preview.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they're even going to bother because from what we've heard, Android M isn't that far off.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess they are gonna bother. I'm gonna guess they are gonna do it, but how late it's gonna be, who knows? But yeah, it sounds like it could be pretty nearby.
So, what if they release it and then release the final version like the next day?
That would be very Google of them.
Yeah, but no, they would release the final version the next day, but it wouldn't actually be available for a month.
Yeah, they would have their Google blog post like Android M, whatever the name is, Marshmallow or whatever, is now official. You'll get updates in a few weeks.
Moon pie.
Yeah, and that would be sufficient time for absolutely no major developers to take advantage of that gap in time.
Yeah. But the good news is that in light of the stage fright scares that we had last week, they're making a push to do. Well, actually, they're making a push to do monthly updates for all Nexus devices now. So I think maybe we can expect a similar level of success with that. I don't know, maybe.
They said about monthly. They didn't literally say every month on the 30th there's going to be an update. So I mean, I suppose they're kind of just saying the schedule is going to be vastly accelerated for
updates. Every month they're going to come out with a post saying, in the coming weeks you'll get a rollout update.
Yeah. I wonder if they're gonna upload new system images every time too, or if it's just gonna be an OTA, or how that's gonna work.
No, I'd assume it'd be system images. I don't think that's too burdensome for them to do as just part of the OTA process.
It just seems like that's gonna get really confusing with a
yeah, Sean's gonna have to write a lot of posts.
Yeah.
This whole monthly security thing, everybody says it's in response to stage fright, but it's we knew about this. We didn't know about it, but we rumored it quite some time ago that they were going to do these monthly security updates.
Yeah, so I mean, people are just really they're connecting stage fright to like everything they possibly can. People are having like internet hysteria with this. And it's not, I mean, it's not like it's, you know, not a legitimate issue, but I don't think it's to the level that people are trying to make it out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a legitimate issue that no one will have. That's the way I like to think of it.
Yeah, probably.
Well, not no one. Next to no one.
Yeah, but I mean, as a part of like, you know, announcing the monthly updates, they also confirmed that the update guarantee that we leaked back in May is official now. So for 3 years, Nexus devices will get the security updates monthly, and then they'll get OTAs for 2 years from the time they're released, or 18 months from the time they leave the Google Store, whichever is longer.
And this sounds, well, I mean, I guess that's nice. But
You know, for Android, I think that's fine. I mean, you're not really going to get any better elsewhere.
yeah, I guess the monthly security patches is cool. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And the major OTAs for 2 years, that's kind of what they've been doing anyway, isn't it? They're roughly 2 years.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, they I think the Nexus 4 is a little bit longer than that, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah, I think so
not in
too.
2012. I think it's almost 3 years old now. But it's not getting M. But it got Lollipop,
Yeah.
or 5.1 a few months ago.
Yeah, the Nexus 10 was the same way.
Yeah, so the 2 year thing, it seems like kind of just reiterating their commitment, I guess. You know, don't worry, guys. They're just going back to the Android Alliance and expanding it by 6 months. This is the Android Alliance 2.0.
The Android Update Alliance. That was, I love how like they made such a big deal out of that at I/O and whatever it was, like 2010 or 2011, and then like nothing ever happened. Like they never uttered those words again.
Yeah. Well, so that was 18 months, like software updates guaranteed for 18 months after the release of any phone, and it was it was basically like all the major carriers that were signed up, right?
Yeah, the carriers and manufacturers: Samsung, LG, HTC, Sony.
Everybody was very in favor of that in theory, and then they realized what it was going to entail, and they were probably not so keen on it.
I feel like somebody went and shook hands and made the agreement, and then they went back and talked to the executives back home, and they were like, "What the hell did you just sign us up for?" And yeah, that's
they went. You know, this isn't something we're gonna have to spend money on, right? Google's doing all of it. It's nothing we have to do.
Or maybe they just misinterpreted it and they thought that they had 18 months to get out the software updates.
Yeah, or you mean you actually have to put a new version of Android on there. We can't just keep updating the same one over and over.
Just change the version number. Nobody will ever know.
Android 4.4.5. There wasn't a 4.4.5, right?
I don't know.
I don't think there was.
I don't.
Because it went
I think
to 3.4
was last. Yeah.
It was 2/3 of the number of the beast.
4.4.4.4.
Yes. And, you know, discussion of the Android Update Alliance segues perfectly into our history of Android, because the Android Update Alliance was announced alongside Ice Cream Sandwich.
Yes, it was. Ice cream sandwich.
Yes. And we're going to do an activity this week for our Android history segment. It's going to be an Android history quiz of sorts about ice cream sandwich. It's only 4 questions long, so if this ends up being really boring, you don't have much to sit through. I promise.
Okay. Everybody, open your workbooks to
Yes.
chapter 3.
So it'll be Liam, Matt, and Ryan. The first 3 questions are true or false, so you can all answer before I give the correct answer without, you know, spilling the beans.
Okay.
So our first question: true or false? Chrome for Android was introduced with Ice Cream Sandwich.
Wait. Clarify.
Alongside.
Okay.
It was true.
False.
I'm going to say false because Ice Cream Sandwich still had the AOSP browser.
It did. That is false. It was not introduced.
I thought it was
It came out
released on
several-
Ice Cream Sandwich. It just wasn't the default browser.
It
came
was.
out several months later,
It did. It came out in February 2012 as a beta.
which is
in
especially
May-
funny.
In
because-
May, it came out as a full release staple.
Yeah. It's funny because Google was so proud of the AOSP browser in 4.0. It had a lot of new features, and then they're like, oh, by the way, Chrome. Yeah.
So our next question, true or false, Ice Cream Sandwich introduced Android Beam.
I'm going to go with true.
True, yes, because I remember that crazy interface with blue particles flying around.
Yeah.
It was. Google was very excited about Android Beam with Ice Cream Sandwich, and then nobody proceeded to use it. As cool a feature as it really is in theory, like you make the phones touch, they tell things to each other. It's so future-y.
It was just so slow.
It was, and it still is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember them demoing it at the what was it, the Hong Kong demo that they did, or I don't remember where it was, but
it's Hong Kong, yeah. Well, for the Galaxy Nexus.
Yep.
Our third question, true or false, Ice Cream Sandwich was the first version of Android to feature a native screenshot function.
True.
True.
I'm going to say true because I don't know, and true is the opposite of what I want it to be, so I feel like that's the
It was. That was the first version of Android to ship with a built-in screenshot function, although some phones like Samsung and HTC devices did have built-in screenshot functions of their own at the time. So we see a reduction in fragmentation there. The F word.
Whoa.
So this is the one question that's not true or false. And I completely forgot about this when I read it. So, as you all probably do remember, the Galaxy Nexus and Ice Cream Sandwich official launch, when they unveiled the phone completely, was delayed by a week. It was moved to Hong Kong. It was a big deal. Why was it delayed?
Steve Jobs.
Yep, that is Steve Jobs passed away on October 5th. The announcement was scheduled for the 11th.
Yes, they felt that it would be inappropriate to have their big fancy phone announcement immediately after Steve Jobs died.
Yeah, so they scheduled it 1 week later.
I was going to say Hurricane Andrew, but that's the wrong.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I completely forgot about it too.
The only delay I could remember was Sony.
Okay, so just to be clear, like I won, right?
Ryan did win. Ryan wins. He doesn't actually win anything.
But, okay, that was going to be my next question. So I guess I don't care.
Yeah.
The games are made up and the points are worth nothing.
We could turn on the draw extension and give you like a little Ice Cream Sandwich sticker for the rest of the show.
Yeah. I don't think I want to give you guys the opportunity to draw on me. That doesn't sound like a win. It sounds like something a loser should do.
So I'm looking at our Ice Cream Sandwich overview posts here, and just going through the features. One of the big ones was, I'm sure Liam remembers, was Roboto was introduced with ICS.
Yes.
Yay, Roboto.
Yeah, I'm surprised they've stuck with it this long. They've been refining it, I think, the whole time.
Yeah, they've had a big update with Lollipop. But you know what still exists and is still around in Drive, I think?
Droid Sans.
Yes, the Droid Sans and the Droid Serif fonts.
Yes.
And Clockopia, I think is the name of the font that they use for the clock widget, is still in a bunch of APKs.
That is such an ugly font. Oh my god.
It's disgusting, and it still exists. To whoever designed it, I'm sorry, but I don't like it.
It might have been totally fine when it was designed, and I'm guessing like 1999.
Oh man. So the other thing we're seeing is that the lock screen got a significant refresh. It added shortcuts to both the phone and the camera, guys. Revolutionary.
Big deal. They also added that that swipe thing on the call screen where you could send a text message instead of answering, and then they just sort of quietly got rid of that a few versions later.
Yeah.
That feature definitely got Samsunged.
I remember the lock screen shortcuts now. It was that circle with the dots that came out, right?
Yes.
And I remember like being really irritated when it went away in like 4.2 or 4.3. Because I used those all the time.
You know, it's funny. I believe there was some talk at the time that Google went with this unlock thing, this style, because Apple had a patent on slide to unlock, and that's why the shortcuts were done that way too, to avoid Apple's patent, supposedly.
Yeah, that was right around the time when Apple was saying, "Look at our patents." Pay attention.
Yeah, and of course, this was also the release that added on-screen buttons for phones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big hollowy ones.
That was a very contentious change.
It was, which
Still
it allowed
is.
the Galaxy Nexus to have that super-sized 4.65-inch display.
Yeah, it's always fun to look back at the monstrous screens of past.
It also allowed the Galaxy Nexus to have really obvious button burn-in after like 2 minutes because that screen was
It did.
awful.
That screen was terrible.
That was, God. It was blotchy, and the colors were weird.
But
It had, like, pen tile oddness. It was just
you're
everything about
forgetting
it.
that the screen was curved to fit your cheek.
That's right, yeah. It was
Holy
less
cow.
curved than the Nexus S, though.
Was
But
it?
who cares about that? It was curved.
Yes. Yeah, it was more curved than, like, the G4 is, but less than the Nexus S, I think.
Man, I completely forgot that Samsung did two phones like that. They had to be livid when LG came out with the G Flex and was like,
You know
crazy new idea.
You know what, though? I think, I don't think that the actual AMOLED panels were curved. It was just the glass on top of them.
Yeah, it was a very gentle curve.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know what's strange is that so Android 4.0 added inline spell check, right? So you get the underline when things are wrong, and it's
Yes.
fantastic. Samsung to this day has still not used that. I don't know what is wrong with them.
Yeah, that's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Because they still use that weirdo like mutant Swift key. Like it's not really Swift key. It's like a kind of disfigured Swift key that's strange and has security issues apparently. But yeah, that was an Android 4.0. The keyboard that we saw introduced with the OS eventually was released as the Google keyboard on the Play Store, I believe. Not sure how long that took though.
I think that happened in the Jelly Bean era. So
I think that sounds about right. But it was the same basic keyboard because they bought this company, which I'm gonna fling up Ron's article here for a little historical perspective. They bought this company called Blind Type, and
that's right. I remember
8
that.
months before ICS came out, they bought this company, and then Blind Type's product never appeared. It was going to be they demoed it on iOS, but it was a weird emulated kind of thing because iOS didn't support third-party keyboards. And yeah, they acquired this company, and that supposedly is the underpinnings, at least as far as the correction technology or the, I guess, where your finger lands, whatever you call that, the predictive touch technology for the keyboard. And there was also brand new text-to-speech. So now, that annoying voice that sounds a little too authoritative, you can thank Google's acquisition of Phonetic Arts for the Google TTS lady or man, however you have Google TTS configured. And they were acquired by Google, and they had some strong TTS technology.
Do you remember the voice before that, though? It was, like, really scary, terrible.
Yeah, I do remember it, actually. It was much slower than it is now. It's still pretty slow, but it's not quite as terrifying.
Back when, Android had voice actions, but nobody knew about it, and even if you knew about it, you didn't want to use it because it sounded really scary.
So there's also a big change in that Android 4.0 was the first time Google had come back to open source because Honeycomb was closed source operating system, and there was some speculation about whether or not Google would stay closed source after Honeycomb, even though they said when they released Honeycomb that it was a temporary thing.
So I think earlier when we were talking about Honeycomb and like how fast it came together, I was going to say maybe that's not talked about so much because there's some design projects that you just don't want to claim responsibility for. I think that might have been the situation with the code for Honeycomb. They were just like, let's not allow anyone to look at this.
If we want to talk about things that failed alongside Android Ice Cream Sandwich, which, of course, who doesn't? Android at Home was unveiled at the same time as ICS, which...
Oh my God. But it's still, like, they're still trying to do it. I'm convinced. Android at Home and the Nexus Q.
Oh yeah, but they're just buying companies that already have viable products.
Yeah, that's true. They're taking a different approach now, but
yeah. But Android 4.0 also added the notification swipe thing, so you could like clear individual notifications instead of getting rid of all of them. Thank goodness.
That wasn't when actionable notifications came out. That was Jelly Bean, right?
Yeah,
Yes, that was Jelly Bean. Yeah, I
Yep.
think that was 4.1. We decided, right? I think.
They were all still single lines in 4.0.
Actionable notifications are something that I feel like people do not take good advantage of.
They really don't, and they should.
There's so much cool stuff that you can do with actionable notifications, which is why like the play music notification in particular, this is totally a tangent, but it gets on my nerves because you can choose what color you want the notification to be, and they chose dark gray. So they were like, hey, let's use this cool new notification capability to make our notification look like a legacy notification.
I feel like that's like some sort of weird unwritten rule with media apps, because a lot of media apps do that, and I don't know why.
So as far as other smaller features in Ice Cream Sandwich that were, I guess, kind of interesting, everybody's really excited. I remember this now, thinking back to Ice Cream Sandwich, everybody was really excited that it was going to be a hardware-accelerated interface in Ice Cream Sandwich, because previously not everything in Android was hardware-accelerated, so you could actually get, like, smooth 50 to 60 FPS screen swipes. I remember when we had there's a video of the Galaxy Nexus before it came out, and everybody was just obsessed with this guy going back and forth, swiping back and forth so smoothly, so quickly.
But it wasn't like butter.
I believe we actually did call it buttery smooth in the article. I was reading it earlier, and it's like, importance of things to come. So, Ice Cream Sandwich also added multi-core support to the OS, which Android didn't have before. It had it in Honeycomb, but it was kind of like hacked in there, I guess.
There were gingerbread multi-core devices though.
Yeah, and supposedly they would have to write in the multi-core stuff themselves, and most apps couldn't take advantage of it. The OS could, because they could write it into their version of the OS, but third-party apps, they would have to like use an SDK if you wanted access to multi-threaded processing, or multi-core processing. I guess I shouldn't say multi-threaded, because I don't know if that's true.
Did we mention Face Unlock? I don't remember.
We
Face
didn't,
Unlock.
but that is a feature of Android 4.0.
And it was the first revision, which was you could like have some like moderately similar looking person like look at your phone and unlock it. It was so unsecure that I'm surprised it's still around, because you would have thought stumbling out of the gate the way it did.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time, it took over the entire lock screen too, and it was very slow. So it actually made it a bigger hassle to unlock your phone.
The way that Lollipop handles it is genius. Plus, they added as a stopgap, they added the to prove you're alive.
Oh yeah,
prove you're
yeah. It would actually say like okay, blink to prove you're alive or you're human or whatever.
Yeah.
You turn that on. And now they just don't bother.
Yeah, no,
it's just Lollipop, and it's just like whatever, close enough.
Which is so cool. Like you don't even realize it's happening.
Let's see if there's anything else interesting here. That's the first time that you could have encrypted storage on Android, was in Android 4.0. That's how not security concerned Android was up until that point.
They had the drag and drop folders to the home screen got added in 4.
Oh, did they? That's a small one, but something you use often.
Yep.
That's crazy.
But I'm guessing that was in custom launchers, though, probably.
Probably was. Go ahead.
Wait, so how did you make folders before that? I don't remember.
You didn't. Wait, did you?
There were folders, weren't there?
There were definitely folders.
I just don't remember how you made them.
I think you actually had to long press and choose folder.
Maybe.
And that sounds vaguely familiar.
I think you long pressed and chose folder, and then once you created a folder, then you could put things in it. I don't.
This is a wrong question if there ever was one. He would have this encyclopedically backed up.
I need to buy Evo 4G and check it out. It's still running gingerbread.
I was thinking about doing that, buying some old. We could buy some old phones and do something with that. I don't know what. Turn that into clicks.
We can find the Galaxy Tab 10.1 back to Honeycomb.
It's like we bought an HTC Evo 4G and we made David use it for a week. Here's how he feels about that.
I was thinking about buying an old Hero and trying to use it. I'm guessing nothing works on it anymore, though.
hero image of David crying with phone.
I think it ended at 2.0, so it probably doesn't support any Google stuff now.
Yeah, you
Since they
probably
probably
all
can't
have to
even
run
run the
through the
Play Store
web.
on it anyway.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to think about that long ago. Because I used to go to this coffee shop at work sometimes, and there's this guy there, a real estate agent, and he had an original iPhone, like the original, on AT&T on an Edge network all the time,
Wow.
and it still worked. Like he was still totally functional. I mean, there are some things it couldn't do, but for most purposes, it was still okay. He had to manually refresh his email, and the web browser was god awful slow, but everything functioned. I don't think you could really say that. I mean, I guess you use a stock email client and such on an old Android phone, but I don't think it would be quite as functional necessarily.
I don't know. I mean,
It would
maybe-
probably still have the Android market on it.
It would, and I wonder if the old Android market would. I assume it still works.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that Kirill has posted some screenshots of like the super old version. I don't know if, like, for example, the old cuticle design with that like green swooshy thing still works, but
Yeah. So we have one other thing that I was going to do. If you're listening to the show on audio, you're not going to be able to see the video I'm about to play, but we are going to experience the Galaxy Nexus commercial from 2011. And if you were to, you're going to realize how far being uncool or not being uncool Android has come in 4 years, because this commercial is just fantastic. I'm going to turn on my speakers for this so you guys can actually hear it. And okay. All right, I think that's enough of that because it's actually about 2.5 minutes long.
You actually just reminded me that the default ice cream sandwich wallpaper, I actually had that like on every computer I owned at the time. Like I loved that wallpaper.
It was a beautiful wallpaper.
it was. Also, that reminds me that they were still on to the whole Tron thing, even with ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, to like a kind of like copyright infringement-y kind of extent. Like, I don't know if this is cool anymore, guys.
It's a parody.
But yeah, that was a wonderful commercial. I'm sure somebody at Google was very proud of that when that came out.
To their credit, at least they showed the phone doing things. Some companies, who shall remain nameless, like to make commercials and ads and stuff that really just don't even appear to be about a phone.
It's true. What else in the ice cream sandwich? I got Wi-Fi Direct, which I guess is exciting to people.
How about the multitasking thing that video was showing?
Yeah, that was the first true multitasking UI on Android.
Because previously it was just recent apps, and then, I mean, it was still recent apps, but it was presented better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually like saved state and stuff. What else was there? I mean, there wasn't, obviously the launcher got a very significant overhaul for Ice Cream Sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
You had the brand new app drawer with that the app and widgets tabs on top. Back when we were super into tabs, which we're getting back into tabs again, and I'm not sure I like that. But
the widgets in the app drawer that lasted until KitKat, I think. And then
yeah,
they
I
put
think
them-
so.
they
It
put
was
them
a
back in
terrible
WordPress.
place for him.
It really
I don't like-
was.
I just don't think they've been able to figure out where to put widgets. Like they just have no idea what to do with them because it seems like it's better in M, but everything like for the last like 5 versions has been not great.
It's, I mean, the thing is, widgets have a tough life, right? Because, like, they're hard to manage, and they're also hard to make. Like, they aren't, like, widgets are very limited. as to what you can do, which I think a lot of that is just so that a widget can't like screw up your home screen experience. But the capabilities of what you can actually do are just so limited that while widgets seem like a great idea, in practice they just don't come out that way very often.
Yeah, I feel like widgets are kind of like making a gourmet pizza, but you have to start with that crappy store-bought crust and then put things on top of it.
Right.
And it's like, well, it is what it is.
You're making the best of a suboptimal foundation.
So here's a
So-
good story from this time period. Apparently, we were all quite perplexed about why there was a barometer on the Galaxy Nexus. Liam may remember he wrote this article, and Dan Morrill elaborated on why the Galaxy Nexus had a barometer. It was for GPS accuracy. But we were all very interested to know why the Galaxy Nexus could do bad weather prediction at the time, apparently.
I do remember that. I did not realize that I wrote the post about that.
That's probably the only reason you remember it.
That's how I feel about pretty much every article I've come across doing this with my name on it. I'm like, oh, I wrote that. Well, I don't remember that very much at all.
Well, I think one thing we're probably not giving enough credit to was the fact that 4.0 unified the tablet and phone operator. It was the first. That was the first phone and tablet version of Android.
That's
Yeah.
true.
We'll talk more about the tablet situation when we get to Honeycomb next week. But
Yes,
So that'll be fun.
Oh, and so Ice Cream Sandwich also marked the end of life for the Nexus 1.
Aww.
Sad days. I was still using the Nexus 1 at that time, so it was sad days.
my goodness.
I had a Nexus S, and then I bought a Verizon Galaxy Nexus, much to my eventual dismay.
Well, I just
Yeah,
never
that
get
was-
phones with trackballs these days. That's what I want to know.
I like the phone trackball, especially the glowy ones. I always loved the multicolored LED on the Nexus 1's trackball. I could always
Yeah.
see what kind of notification I
The
had.
Nexus One had a real that trackball / notification light thing. It's really cool. Although it couldn't do any color other than white until Froyo. Like it just like the API to do that just didn't exist.
Yeah, you had to root it. There was, what's that app called that's still widely used?
Lightflow or something?
Lightflow, yes. Back then it was still just an app you had to get on XDA, I
I
think.
totally used that, and I remember finding out that the Evo 4G had a second LED under the speaker grill, and that was like big news.
Yeah, HTC's always done that too. They have usually have a secondary light for the battery being like crazy low or something, and that's usually
Like-
what it's there for.
The Nexus 9, how it totally
Yes.
has an LED, but like, and it's right there, it's right in the right spot, but you just can't use it for anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we should probably get a word in from our sponsor.
Ooh, we should do that. So this week's Android Police podcast is brought to you by Simple, a better way to do online banking. You can check them out. It's simple.com/AndroidPolice. Simple has some great features like goals, which allow you to set spending goals for things you want to buy or things you have to pay for, and to help achieve them without having to deal with the hassle of separate accounts, and updating your balance on the basis of relative to your goals, how much money you have, and the bills you're going to have to pay this month. So it shows you how much money you really have available to spend based on things that you actually haven't paid for yet, to help you better manage your spending habits and get further with your dollar. Again, you can check them out at simple.com/AndroidPolice.
All right, so we had an interesting week from Sony this week. They announced some phones, and that was part of the story. But they also announced some earnings, and that was probably the bigger story because Sony is just not really doing very well. I mean,
Well, Sony overall is doing fine. It's the
Well,
Sony
good
mobile
point.
division that is crashing and burning presently.
Yeah, they are bleeding the money over there, and it's really not hard to understand why that's happening. I think, well, it's hard for Sony to understand, apparently.
Yeah, they lost the equivalent of about 185 million in the last.
It's a pretty good chunk of change. That's not like,
Yeah.
Motorola under Google ownership money, but it's, They already cut a bunch of jobs over there. They've already been streamlining, and yet they continue to burn cash.
That was pretty harsh, David.
But I mean, they've got these new phones out, the C5 Ultra. There's no regular C5, by the way. It's just the C5 Ultra because Sony's naming schemes are. But there was a C4, but there wasn't a C4 Ultra. There's no C5, but there is a C5 Ultra. I don't really think their names make any sense. And then there's the M5, which is the sequel to the M4 Aqua. And the M5 is waterproof too, in the same way, but it's not an Aqua because I guess Sony decided it didn't like the Aqua name at the end of the phone, so it's just the M5 now. So it's really the M5 Aqua, or the M4 Aqua 2, but it's just the M5. And somebody at Sony, I'm going to guess 2 different teams were responsible for naming these phones, and one decided they want to keep the suffix names, and the other was like, no, this is dumb.
They should have just let the other team name the other device. I feel like they could have just cleared things up a lot better that way.
So we could have had the C5 and the M5 Aqua. Great.
To me, I feel like the Aqua thing is like at Sony somewhere, somebody's like, our commercials show people running their phone underwater, but nobody gets that they're waterproof. How do we tell people that they're waterproof?
Well, they also had that underwater phone store, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Sony in the underwater phone store. I seriously, you can't. It's only Sony.
We're literally selling them underwater. Why don't people know about this?
Guys, I've got a great marketing idea, and just give me a minute. What if we put a phone store, and we stay with me here? It's underwater, and people swim to the phone store, and they buy things in the underwater phone store. And everybody at Sony went, "That's brilliant." Probably including Amy Pascal was there to provide her input.
But I bet that if you go to the underwater phone store, you still get like a sealed bag to swim away with.
Because the M4 Aqua is not waterproof to those depths. Use at your own risk.
Yep.
Well, also, like the box and the user manual is probably not waterproof.
Make them out of plastic.
Yeah, but if they were, that'd be a really cool marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
Hey, you should work at Sony. That's an idea. It's better than the ideas they have.
That's exactly the kind of thing they would spend money on.
It is.
But it's waterproof.
I mean, going back to their sales per Fluffle for a minute, they only sold 7.2 million devices total in the last quarter, and that's the lowest since the middle of 2012.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I mean, to put in perspective, 2 or 3 months ago, Oppo in China finally released their own sales figures. They sold 30 million phones in 2014. So Sony is now smaller on a quarterly basis than a Chinese phone manufacturer that nobody in America has ever even heard of.
Yeah, Sony needs to everything they're doing is wrong, and they need to just do everything differently. They should just make the opposite decision of every decision they make from now on.
Yeah, but what's the opposite of glass and rectangle?
Round cardboard.
There you go.
I think that's the only way forward.
Cardboard is power much.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, there we go.
But it's like the size of a saucer, and it's on your so it's a phone.
And so the thing is, on paper, Sony phones, I mean, these 2 new phones, I can guarantee the problem with them is they're going to be horrendously overpriced. There's no doubt in my mind that Sony thinks these phones need to retail for way too much.
Yeah, Sony's mid-range stuff used to be competitive, but they have since been completely blown out of the water by stuff like the Moto G and like the Alcatel Idol 3 and all this other stuff that you can get for like $200 or $250, and it's just so much better. Except for, sometimes it's not water resistant, but whatever. Although the new Moto G is.
Yeah, but you're paying for that excellent Sony, those glitch-free firmwares and that fast update track record and consistent communication about updates. Which the joke is Sony's terrible at all. They're not terrible, but they're not very good at those things. They often have issues with this kind of stuff. Sony updates their devices, but it seems that subsequently the number of bugs those devices then begin to experience rises by a suspicious degree.
But, I mean, if we're being honest, though, if they were really good at those things, do you think that they would be a top contender? I mean, those are problems, don't get me wrong, but that's not what keeps them from selling phones.
I mean, I think for them it's a chicken and egg issue, and the chicken being phones and the egg being marketing. And do we spend money on the phones or do we spend the money on the marketing? And I think Sony advertises a fair bit in countries where they have some success, but in countries where they don't have any market penetration, like America, they advertise not at all. And it makes it hard for them to expand, and then they're getting squeezed out by companies operating on thinner margins in China. And then Japan, the cost of doing business is higher, and Japan also, I generally think Sony is still, they kind of like that Japanese company mindset. If they can't, they're not profitable, so why would they pour more money into a business that's not profitable in order to try to dig it out of a unsuccessful hole? That and their phones just, they seem like they think they exist in like a technological vacuum where what they do, it doesn't matter compared to what everybody else does. It's a Sony product, and therefore it is better. And obviously that doesn't really fly with consumers who are now starting to judge phones seriously on price to power and capability and in brand to an extent too.
Maybe they shouldn't make all their phones look the same too.
That'd probably help.
I'm just throwing that out there. And maybe waterproof isn't a selling point like they think it is.
I think it is. I think there's always going to be a market for the ruggedized phones. Without a doubt. People who work, especially in certain occupations, who just need them, do definitely exist.
I feel like there's a distinction between ruggedized and like a really pretty phone that's just waterproof, though. Because for me,
that's true. That's very true.
I don't need ruggedized, so I also don't care about waterproofing because I just don't.
That much I agree with. I've never cared about waterproofing in a phone, even if it was like the most beautiful phone ever. The Galaxy S5's port cover, more than anything, just made me like snip it off with a pair of pliers because it just got in the way all the time. Waterproofing, I don't believe, has ever been a beneficial feature in a phone I've owned.
I feel like it's good for a company to have a waterproof option, but I don't think that's what you hang your hat on.
Yeah, definitely. And especially if it comes at sacrifice of other things, it makes the phone potentially thicker. May increase the cost of construction. It may mean you have to have a port cover, which are evil, and I hate them. And that really is it to me. If you can't do it without a port cover, waterproofing has never really been that worth it. And I know lots of people who have owned Xperia phones have cut off the port covers on their devices.
Right. You could do waterproofing without that. You just have to get that magic spray stuff that makes everything water repellent and spray it in the micro USB port.
Totally.
And then microwave it to set it in place.
For microwave curing, yes.
Oh, good deal. All right, well, since we're talking about Sony, who hasn't done anything apparently this bad since 2012, let's move on to LG, who's releasing in 2015 flip phone.
It's not a flip phone. It's a folder experience.
It's a folder experience. But you know what, though? You know what the thing about that is it's a flip phone.
It's a giant flip phone.
So it's obviously intended for Korea to an extent, where it's actually called the LG Gentle instead of the Wine Smart.
Gentle.
Other countries include France, Italy, Japan, Kazakhstan, Poland, and others, I guess. Do people in these countries, is there some strange demand, I'm a high-powered businessman who's used the flip phone for many years and am insecure about switching to a full-touch device. What do I do? LG to the rescue.
I mean, okay.
I can't send text messages without T9.
But here's the stupidest thing. The stupidest thing about this phone, though. So it's a flip phone, but it doesn't have one of the most basic flip phone features, which is an outside screen. You close it, and the screen is gone. It's this is substantially less useful than a flip phone.
But Ryan, you could pair it with your modern and stylish LG Watch Urbane, and your Watch Urbane could be your front screen.
If you have a Watch Urbane, you are not buying this phone.
But what if you did? You would be the biggest LG fanboy in the universe.
There are two people in the world who have that combination of devices.
Wait, what's the resolution on the Watch Urbane?
Is it same as all the other ones?
20, I think.
Yeah, I think so. They're all So this device has comparable
it's
resolution.
480 by 320 HVGA. It's just a little higher technically.
Little bit higher, but on a 3.2-inch screen. So
Yeah, so it actually looks quite a bit crappier.
You know, it also has this control circle in the middle, and I wonder if it's a scroll wheel. Because if it's a physical scroll wheel, like the ones the iPods used to have, I might be kind of into that.
You think? I bet it's just a D-pad.
Yeah, I bet it's just a D-pad
It's
too.
probably a
LG wouldn't do
D-pad.
anything that cool.
It's probably not a notification light as well. Either,
Oh, okay. Favorite design touch? It has the appropriate lollipop function buttons.
I was
on the
going to say
actual
that.
device.
Up at the top of the keypad.
That's amazing. It's the best.
That is good.
Giant. The scale is totally wrong, just like on LG's touchscreen phones.
This must just be for serial T9 addicts. Like, that's the only kind of person who would ever want this
Also,
that I can think of.
Also, people who've been in a coma for 20 years.
Also, for people who buy flip phones thinking it means they don't have to get a data plan, to fool them into getting a data plan.
It's
Just
true.
imagine someone coming out of a coma and like looking for a new phone for some reason. And they're like, "What is all this crap?" Oh, here's a real phone.
Yeah, so what's this big glass screen on the phone? That's gonna break and get fingerprints all over it. Where's the stylus?
I mean, you guys, if you think about it, it's just like having a case on your phone because you just close it up for protection. It's basically the same thing.
Well, I think
Totally.
another thing that we're overlooking is that flip phones added. So when you're on like a landline phone, there's a lot of stuff you can do to react to the conversation. Like you can slam the receiver down on the thing. With a flat phone, you can't really do that. But with a flip phone, you can both answer in a really cool way, and you can also slam it shut when you're pissed off at somebody.
That's a good point. But that's assuming you use your cell phone to take and make phone calls.
The person that buys this totally does.
Oh, they
You
definitely
can- you
do.
can
They're taking a
slam it
lot of
shut.
important calls.
If you see an Instagram photo that you don't agree with, or a text message that has you angry, you can slam it shut too. It might not have the same effect, but you can do it.
I feel like this should come with like a jawbone or something.
I feel like it should come with a real phone.
Are we sure that this isn't like one of those wacky Bluetooth accessory phones that you pair to a real phone? Is that
Oh,
what-
wasn't it HTC that had a
Yeah.
mini phone?
Yes,
game?
the mini phone, the
They do.
HTC
They
Remote Mini.
still have a toggle for that in Sense. Like you can there's a button.
I think they still sell them in Taiwan.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, did you guys, like, back in the day ever play Neopets?
No.
No.
I don't think I did. I don't remember. I know what it is.
Pets. And you could buy these thing called pets, or pets for your pets. That's what I always think of when I hear about that tiny phone, because it's like a phone for your phone.
Oh man,
Yes.
that that makes for no. I guess we do have time for this because the next thing is about the NVIDIA Shield tablet recall, and I don't think we should talk about that because everybody who has one knows about it. But we're doing this thing on social media, our social media channels every Thursday. Man, I feel so gross using those words together. But we're doing a Throwback Thursday post, and this week's was we went and looked at the leaked Android 2.1 update for the Samsung. Oh man, I just forgot what phone it was.
The Moment, right?
The Moment, yes. I guess I needed a moment there.
Yes. The Samsung Moment. I think that was like the second, maybe like the third or fourth Android phone that you could buy. It was on Sprint in the U.S. and it had an optical trackpad, which at the time was really cool because all the other Android phones had track balls.
Yeah, it was a slider phone too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had a full QWERTY back when people thought that was something you absolutely needed. Although at the time Android's keyboard was pretty bad, so you kind of did.
Also, it had a Samsung WineSmart matching 480 by 320 3.2-inch display.
Yeah, a lot of the old Android phones were that exact screen, a 3.2-inch and HVGA. Although this was an AMOLED, so it was probably
Oh, yeah.
Pentile too.
Yeah, probably, but this was back when AMOLED was still. I mean, it was brighter, especially than the LCDs at the time. That's what I remembered about AMOLED. At least not compared to the iPhone, but the colors were just quite crazy saturated.
Yeah, that was a strange time. That phone was really popular for like 5 minutes because it had a substantially faster processor than all the other Android phones.
Yeah, so that was back in the day this week.
Oh, that's cute. That's a cute phone. It's got a slide-out QWERTY keyboard. Oh.
I do find it really funny that that LG phone does have the same screen resolution in 2015. It's quite outstanding.
That is great. All right, so should we talk about Qualcomm a little bit?
Oh
folks?
boy, I don't really. We can talk about the 820. Let's just talk about the 820 leak.
All
Yeah,
right.
let's just do that. Hail Hydra, because of course Qualcomm of course has decided to call their new CPU core Hydra. Apparently, according to this leak, I think the previous leaks it was like Cryo or something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But yeah, so apparently the 820 will have 4 of the new Hydra cores. So it'll be going back to just straight quad core instead of the octa-core big little thing they've been doing recently with the ARM reference cores. So it'll have that. It'll have an updated Adreno GPU, and it'll be I think 14 nanometer manufacturing process instead of 20 nanometers.
Yes, it will be 14 nanometer FinFET.
So hopefully this combination of things. Oh, I'm hearing echo.
Somebody's echoing. Am I echoing? I don't. Oh, well, now I hear somebody echoing. It's got to be Matt. Can't hear you, Matt.
Not saying anything. Maybe he's muted.
I think. Oh, I thought his video was frozen. Maybe not.
I'm not frozen.
Oh, there he is.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Don't you worry about me.
I'm
Okay.
worried.
But anyway, about the 820. So yeah, faster GPU, new CPU cores, and the 14 nanometer manufacturing process. It should be they say much more efficient and cooler. Supposedly the GPU is 40% more powerful and 30% more efficient, and apparently the new Hydra core is 35% more powerful compared to a Cortex A57, which is the ARM reference core they're using right now.
Yeah, I mean, the 30% more powerful sounds great, but 30% more powerful at what power is kind of the key issue there. Because obviously, dropping down to 14 is going to get them some serious efficiency gains. But it's, obviously we'll know soon enough when they announce it, which I imagine will be quite soon. These look like investor presentation documents that got leaked out.
Yeah, they're trying to calm people after their quarterly results were not so good.
Yeah, the quarterly results are pretty terrible for Qualcomm. It looks like they might actually ship fewer chips this year than they did last year.
Yeah, I mean
would be bad.
Just Samsung pulling out is probably enough to really screw them up. I mean, that was by itself probably a pretty significant hit.
Yeah, I would assume that was a pretty big factor in their shipments for this year.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, yep. So hopefully soon they will announce this, and then it will, according to the slides, it will ship to OEMs to test late this year, and devices will start shipping with it early next year. So probably no Snapdragon 820 in a Nexus this year.
Yeah. All right, I guess it's time for voicemail.
Voicemails. All right, let me see if I can get this thing to work here. Hold on.
Not hearing anything. Nothing. Can't hear you either.
How about now?
Cell phone connectivity and MVNOs. Currently, I have Straight Talk Wireless.
Yeah, this isn't working.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just not working. It's just not working.
All right.
Worked earlier, not working now.
Yes, it did.
It did work earlier. We were there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do we know what? Can you give us the?
Could we have a summary of the voicemail?
Yeah.
It isn't badly read voice, Google Voice transcript.
I can do my best to translate from Google Voice.
Oh boy.
Hey guys, it's Brian. I have a question about cell phone connectivity, and MVNOs. Currently, I have Straight Talk Wireless, and I was on AT&T towers on their service over the past month or so. I've been having some connectivity issues where I am... You know what? I can't read it with the spacing. It's terrible.
Unable.
All right, let's try this again. Hey guys, it's Brian. I have a question about cell phone connectivity and MVNOs. Currently, I have Straight Talk Wireless, and I was on AT&T towers on their service over the past month or so. I've been having some connectivity issues where I am unable to receive calls or place calls to other users on Straight Talk. I will get the voicemail. I will get the voicemail, and my question is, I've considered having... Yeah, okay. I will get the voicemail, and my question is, I've considered perhaps moving to Cricket Wireless or another MVNO, but I'm serious, and I've got to run. I can't do this.
Oh
this
man,
is too
it's too brutal. And honestly, it sounds like a question that we have no idea how to begin to answer. Like if your calls don't go through to some people, that sounds really weird. That doesn't seem like a normal issue that people have.
Hey guys, Brian. I have a question about cell phone connectivity and MVNOs. Currently, I have Straight Talk Wireless, and I use AT&T towers on their service. Over the past month or so, I've been having some connectivity issues where I am unable to receive calls or place calls to other users of Straight Talk. I immediately get the voicemail. And my question is, I considered perhaps moving to Cricket Wireless, another MVNO, but I'm curious, am I going to run into the same issues? So I don't know what experience you guys have, but if there are connectivity issues on an MVNO, is it typically with the main source provider like AT&T, or is there truly connection problems within the MVNO where we can expect better service with Cricket Wireless as opposed to Straight Talk? I was just curious you guys' experience. If you had any knowledge or enlightenment, I'd be all ears. Thanks a lot. Bye.
So Cody is talking it out in the chat and saying there are some known issues with certain Nexus phones in MVNOs, which I think I vaguely remember us writing about, but I'm not sure. Yeah, that sounds like I mean, I don't know if you have the same issue if you go to another MVNO. It's hard to say. Somebody's, Wade County saying in the chat that if the towers are loaded up, the MVNOs go to second tier, and so you get a reduced quality of service. I could believe that for sure if you're in a busy area and the network's at capacity that your calls may go straight to voicemail or get dropped completely. I certainly wouldn't discount that possibility.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if AT&T is really his best option for an MVNO there, then he might just be kind of out of luck.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer of an issue for sure. I would have no good response to that.
Yeah, and I think, I think it has to kind of come to play a little bit because obviously AT&T's networks, when you pay the premium to be on AT&T's network, that's significantly more than what you're paying on MVNO. So in order for the MVNO to pay AT&T to use their network and also be able to charge you a lower rate than what AT&T is charging, I think they've got to give in to some demands of AT&T that they're going to be a lower tier.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, they're also paying wholesale rates, so I'm not sure exactly how that end of the business works, but it could be a business issue, as is being suggested.
Yeah. All right, so we got some emails now. The first one from Aaron also happens to be similarly related, but all these prepaid carriers are advertising BYOD options, bring your own device, but carrier-branded phones don't get OTAs. I had an AT&T branded M8 on Cricket that never got the Lollipop update until I manually downloaded it. Same thing on the Note 4 I have now on Cricket. I was able to go to the Samsung Experience shop in a Best Buy to get it updated, and I still have another one now that I need to get with many software updates containing security and bug fixes. Do you think this is a problem most consumers would never know to get these devices manually updated?
So the reason this happens is AT&T and Verizon both require you to authenticate against the network to pull an OTA update.
Yeah,
they've been doing this forever, basically, unless you have an iPhone, in which case, obviously, you can circumvent that because you're special. But otherwise, yeah, so you have to, if you have an AT&T or Verizon branded phone, T-Mobile I don't think does this, and I don't think Sprint does it either. but I know
I
AT&T
don't
and
believe
Verizon both do.
that T-Mobile does.
Yeah, AT&T and Verizon both do this. So if you have an AT&T branded phone and you don't have AT&T service, there actually is no way to update it other than manually updating if you can get the update file and flash it.
Yeah, Verizon has a desktop client that works with a lot of phones that you can use to.
Does that still work? I remember that a long time ago.
It does. It does work. I
Wow.
used it recently on a Note 4.
Okay, well that's a way to get around it on Verizon. On AT&T, they pretty much are giving you the middle finger and saying if you leave AT&T, you don't get our support anymore. AT&T has the world's slowest OTA download server, I believe. And seriously, because I have a bunch of AT&T phones on my desk, and once in a while, like there's an update for one, we're posting a story, I grab the phone, and I realize, oh, I have to put my AT&T SIM card in this phone, which means adapting it to a micro SIM because it's a nano SIM, turning on the phone, putting in the SIM card, or putting in the SIM card, then turning on the phone, and then connecting to the AT&T OTA server, which usually on the first time tells you, no, there's no update, you're a liar, and then it says you can wait 24 hours before your next update, and then you set the clock forward. That's how you trick it, and you just set it forward and keep checking until it gives you the update you want. But yeah, this is an issue with AT&T phones and Verizon phones, but as Ryan says, with the Verizon, there's a workaround. With AT&T, unless the manufacturer is publishing it, there isn't.
All right, next email from Joseph. I use Google Photos to back up, and so far I am probably going to get the Moto X Pure Style 2015. It comes with a 21 megapixel camera, but Google Photos service supports up to 16 megapixel. Will it still be worth it to use Google Photos if it downsizes my photos to 16 megapixel?
Okay. I have stuff to say about this. So 16 megapixels, I mean, so the answer is it depends on what you want to do with your photos. Because at 16 megapixels, you can comfortably print an 11 by 14 photo at 300 dpi, which is pretty big and pretty high resolution. Like that's professional print quality resolution. So if you ever feel like you might want to make posters out of all of your photos, then you might want to either get more drive space or do something else. But otherwise, I think you're fine.
Yep, that's good. Let's move on to the next one. Hello, AP team. Thanks for your answer on the air, and sorry not giving you enough information the first time. Like you said, the first thing I did, by the way, this is a gentleman who had Wi-Fi problems on their Nexus 5 on last week's show. The first thing like you said, the first thing I did, I've checked the option to keep Wi-Fi on during sleep. It's set to always. The same thing is happening when I'm connected to my home Wi-Fi as in my work, and the last time I've done a factory reset was when 5.0 came to my phone. So do you think another factory reset is the only solution? So we talked about this a little bit last week, and unless anybody's had any epiphanies, yeah, I mean, if it's work and home, I doubt switching your Wi-Fi from 5.0 to 2.4 is going to do anything because I doubt your office is using 5 gigahertz.
Well, I mean, it's worth a try. If you can do 2.4 is generally more stable than 5.0. I've found on pretty much any device. So that's worth a try and see if it works because 5.0's benefits probably aren't going to be huge on your device anyways.
Yeah, but if he finds that even then it's still happening, then I think you narrowed it down to the device, and you can try factory reset, but there might just be something physically wrong with the device.
Could be a fault in there, but yeah, I would definitely try the factory reset.
Especially, wait, this is a Nexus something?
Yeah.
Nexus 5. Yeah, just download the factory image and maybe flash that.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll be able to restore your apps and stuff because you're running Lollipop, so you're going to have a state save on Google servers that you can get all your apps back from. It'll be less painful than most other devices in that respect, at least.
Yeah.
Might not be a bad idea to download a Wi-Fi analyzer too. Some app that can analyze which Wi-Fi signals you're picking up, what channels they're coming across on. Sometimes you can improve it just by changing the channel your Wi-Fi router's using. So.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, isn't there in Android a avoid unstable connections toggle?
I think we talked about that last week, didn't we?
Did we? I forget. We talked about the don't let Wi-Fi go to sleep.
I don't know if that's something that's
no, yeah, we did talk about that last week. The option's gone.
Yeah.
Bounce out. Okay, never mind. Just retreading old ground there.
Yep. So. All All right, moving on to the next email is also from Brian, who we had the voicemail from earlier. First off, what the heck is going on with HTC? Their revenue fell 50%. What's the problem, and why can't their phones attract buyers? This is bad. And he links to an article about their revenue being cut in half. Second question, he said he'd be especially interested to hear your thoughts on this, David. So apparently he's a glutton for punishment. What potential benefits and negatives might there be for the smartphone industry, or if the smartphone industry adopted a business structure similar to the auto industry? I mean, there's a Lexus and a Toyota, a Honda and Acura, a Lincoln and a Ford. Why couldn't Samsung buy out HTC, sell Samsung as their luxury brand and HTC as their mid-range common class models? Doing this would allow both entities to reduce the number of phones produced, consequently cleaning up the consumer-confusing, brand-weakening phones like the Galaxy Express i437. I don't even remember that one existed, so apparently it was a thing. While simultaneously strengthening each one's defined identity, less phones for each brand with better, clearer definitions of those that do exist. What benefits do car manufacturers receive by doing it this way, and could something similar help the struggling smartphone OEMs compete? Thoughts?
Oh boy, this episode's already pretty long.
Do you want to save this for next week?
We can save the HTC discussion, because HTC, it's like, it could be an entire 20 minutes worth of talking. The car thing, my gut response is phones aren't expensive enough for that to matter. But that's just, a very cursory opinion. I just don't see phones being expensive enough for, luxury versus, economy versus sport. I mean, there wouldn't be a sport phone, and, well, rugged phones. But to really matter that much as far as branding goes, at least that's my opinion. The only phone with a brand image that, says luxury or wealth is the iPhone, and even so, it's only, it's a tenuous connection. It's not obvious. It's not like the iPhone is the Mercedes-Benz of phones. It's a different kind of thing.
Does anybody remember when Sony said they were going to be the luxury phone manufacturer?
I don't.
They said that. It was a thing they said. We're going to do that, they said.
That's Sony.
So I guess what I'm getting at is, you see how that worked out.
Yeah, Sony kind of... I would say Sony lost the plot, and that's another example of Sony losing the plot. But yeah, this is a big question that could go on a long time, and we've already gone on a long time.
All right, well, we have a contest going on over at androidpolice.com/contest. You can get yourself entered to win one of 5 64-gigabyte Asus Zenfone 2s. All you got to do is throw some suggestions out. I guess this is some free market research for Asus. Ways you would improve the Zenfone 2 and get yourself entered to win one while you're at it. So that's going on at androidpolice.com/contest. And with that, I think we are ready to roll the outro. So if you want to get a hold of us like those past emailers did, you can get a hold of us at podcast@androidpolice.com, or voicemail works too, 530-HELLO-AP. That's 530-435-5627. Also on Twitter at Android Police and Google Plus and Facebook.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and stop the broadcast.